Hi everyone, it's Jackie Schomburg Meynen, and I wanted to let you guys in on the process I'm currently going through with starting a new series. I'm making a series of 10 12 by 12 canvases here, and they're all thick canvases, so they're the 2.5 inch or whatever the exact measurement is, the museum profile. I'm starting with some water soluble graphite just to that's just what I'm starting with. No real reason. And as I'm looking, actually, this is not, it's not water soluble graphite. It's just regular graphite um, that I'm using. But as I'm putting some medium over it to set it, it's smearing. And I'm putting the medium on and specifically so that the paint isn't impacted later. And I like having this loose feel as the graphite smudges. It just gives a little extra character and some unexpected marks as well. You may notice that the canvas on these canvases is not super tight or very taut, and I will show you how to resolve that later. There's a very easy fix. So one of the things you'll notice as I'm doing this, I'm starting off with the same materials. You don't have to do this. This is what I like to do to make the collection cohesive and the series cohesive. So I did graphite on all of them, and now I'm adding paint on all of them with the same brush and, similar shades of paint. So this is a very creamy yellow and then some white as well. And I added the creamy yellow without the white on the first couple. So you don't need to do the same exact steps on each one, but I'm trying to do the steps that I am taking in different ways on each one. So some of them I'll do the color all the way across. Some of them I'll do the color, on half of the canvas. Some of them I'll do it just on a quarter of the canvas up in one corner. Sometimes it'll be in the middle. So I'm varying the approach I'm taking with the paint on each one, but I'm using the same paint and the same brush. Again, these are all suggestions. These are not hard and fast rules. People make series in plenty of ways that do not involve the same color palette exactly or the same methods I'm doing. This is just how I like to do it. And I like doing it because no matter what you end up with at the end, if you use the same materials, your work will have something that ties everything together. And the method you put the paint on does matter. So here I'm using some yellow ochre with just my fingers. And you can see how the application of that is different than the brush. The brush was much smoother, much more uniform. This is a little bit sloppier and just more of a rough, more organic feel. And let's be honest, it's really fun. It's really fun to use your fingers. I highly recommend it. Yes, it's messy. Yes, you'll be picking paint off your fingers for a day or two. Um, and chances are it'll be definitely in front of people that you don't know, and they'll think you have a horrible skin disease. So maybe use some really bright colors so that they know it's not your actual skin. That happens to me all the time with my gloss medium because I inevitably get it on my hands and then it peels off and it just looks like I have a horrible, horrible, like dry skin ailment. But, you know, you got to be weird when you're an artist, right? You got to have something that people are like, what is she doing? So I've got that base covered. And I used some paper towels there to wipe some of the yellow ochre off just to give it a different finish. And you can see how that differs from the yellow ochre I've applied to other panels. You can see my thinking fingers in the bottom, trying to figure out what color to do next. So I decided to do an alizarin crimson that I watered down a bit so that it would drip. I promise you'll see more of that. So I'm intentionally using it with water. And I'm using a much smaller brush this time. I promise I'll show you all of them when they're not dripping. That's the nice thing too about using this thicker museum canvas is they do stand up on their own. Added perk. So again, I'm using the same color, I'm using the same method when I apply this alizarin crimson, but I'm doing different shapes, I'm doing different placement. Different amounts of the paint. I'm going for a loose abstract landscape feel on these. And obviously I'm adding more water on some than others. And you can see on that top one, you can see where some of the paint has been washed off by the water, so it really gives a lot of depth. And using the paper towels to wipe it off gives it a different type of depth. So the pieces don't need to be identical. They should be different. But so now I'm going into the canvas itself. So if you have a canvas that's not pulled tight, you can take a bunch of water, spray it on the back of the canvas. And what happens is, as that dries, that will tighten up the canvas all over. So you need to use a lot of water, get it underneath that wood frame in all the different corners. You can either lay it out, or I used a hairdryer here to speed up the process. It helps a ton. Probably best to do before you start painting, but it works either way. So you can see, I know you didn't see in the beginning, but you can see the very, very beginning of this video how some of them were kind of ripply because they weren't pulled taut. And now it's much tighter. And if it's not as tight as you want, you can keep adding water and keep repeating this process until you get what you're looking for. And this is such an easy process and something that I was totally unaware of until recently, that you could do this. So I would spend time and time again looking through all the different canvases at the art store, looking for some that were perfect, not realizing that I could just easily adjust that at home. And again, you don't have to use a hairdryer. You can just set them aside, but I wanted to speed it up. And it even sounds different. I know I don't have sound in this video, but when they are fully tightened up, they do sound like a drum. So as I'm going through this process, just tightening these up, I'm thinking through what colors I want to use next, what kind of application I want to use next, where I want these to go. I'm kind of thinking about my horizon line. Some of them I have kind of in the middle, like the one on the left, halfway up the canvas. Some I have toward the top, some I have toward the bottom. Some I haven't decided which way is going to be top and bottom yet. But this was a nice time for me to pause as I was thinking through the next steps. And you need to put a lot of water on. I will give you that. You need to put a lot of water on. So it will take time to dry. So you can see that I could either do this with a very low horizon line with a huge sky up above, or I could flip it and make it mostly ground with a tiny little sky. So here is what 9 of them look like. I couldn't show all 10 in one shot, as I'm adding some more color. A much lighter, cheerier pink color. And I'm choosing to paint around the edges. You do not have to do that, but I like to. And you can see how each one has its own thing happening. They're not all identical, but it's fun for me to play up the same paint, the same application on each one, and then find opportunities to make them different. So here I'm blending some lighter pink paint, carving through the paint. Some you can wipe away, some you can add more. Adding some hard edges there versus the soft edges in the other pictures. You know, use your flair. Use the things that you love doing. But I highly recommend working on more than one painting at a time. If nothing else, it keeps you going when you're not sure what to do. You still have to repeat that step for the next however many paintings you're working on. So it gives your brain time to decide what to do next for the whole series. And here you can see I'm adding in some Celadon, which I hadn't done for the others, but it felt right in that moment. And then I go back and add some Celadon in, even though I haven't finished the pink. So this may be a point of departure. I may go through, add Celadon to all of them, make sure I add the pink to all of them. I may only add it to some of them, but because they still have the base of similar colors and similar structure, they'll still stay looking uniformly as a series. I shouldn't say uniform. They'll stay looking cohesive as a series. All right, so stay tuned for the rest. I've got lots more work to do on these. Take care.